because there are a lot of people in this country who do not like Black women, but Black women are the base of the Democratic Party.
But Black power starts with Black women. It just does.
We are absolutely winning right now. Absolutely. We have done more than change the conversation. We changed the balance of power in the federal government.
Oh, something. Do you feel the passion? Oh, something. Do you feel the passion?
How we feeling out there tonight, y'all? Appreciate y'all pulling up. Hit that like button for me. Like, share, subscribe, all the things. You guys remember all the things, right? I need you to do all the things for me today. A couple of days ago, I mentioned an idea I wanted to talk about, a concept that was on my mind, a problem perhaps that was brewing. You know, I think about things too much. I see things maybe other people don't always see. You know, I see Black people, you know, things like that, right? And I was talking about this idea that the Black community, Black culture, Blackness, all these Black things that America has come to know recently, starting to go out of style. All right. And we finally got a chance to really flesh that idea out with a huge story that kind of ties it all together with this Supreme Court ruling, the Voting Rights Act and all that. You know, if you listen to the people on TV, you know, Black people can't vote anymore. If you watch, you know, CNN and MSNBC and all these other liberal people, you know, you would come away thinking that you niggas can't vote anymore. They're going to have you counting beans in a jar like they did back in the day. You know, guess how many jelly beans is in this jar. If you can tell me how many jelly beans is in this jar, then you can get in the voting line, right? That's basically how they've been talking about it recently, you know, but either way, you know, the sky is falling. No more votes for you niggas, all right?
This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle.
Progressivism seeks to replace the basic premises of the Declaration of Independence, and hence our form of government. It holds that our rights and our dignities come not from God, but from government. It requires of the people a subservience and weakness incompatible with a constitution premised on the transcendent origin of our rights.
That was Clarence Thomas recently speaking about how horrible, how fake and gay all the progressives are, and how they're a threat to everything that we love and hold dear. You know, as a Black man on the Supreme Court, he is uniquely one of the most hated figures on the court right now, because him being all Black and shit, you see how dark-skinned he is, right? He ain't even light-skinned or nothing. He's like Alabama Black, you know? And he is not a liberal who's out there trying to, you know, shuck and jive, fight for his rights and all of that shit. He's actually a very old school, hardcore constitutional scholar, right? He doesn't really give a shit about your Blackness and all of these things, right? He's just looking at the law and the history of American jurisprudence, and he's making his decisions as best he can within those narrow parameters, right? This is why he's loved by the allegedly racist right wing, and he's also hated by, you know, Black people and all the left wing white people and everything out there, because he's not fighting for the Black thing like he's supposed to. And what is the Black thing? Politically speaking, anyway, what is the Black thing? All right, let me give you an example of what the Black thing is. And this is what makes Clarence Thomas so dangerous and unlovable and unliked by the liberals, because this is how you're supposed to be as a Black man.
We know that in this great country of ours, whenever progress has been made, it has always triggered a backlash amongst those interested in elevating white supremacy, this ugly underbelly in American society. There was the progress of emancipation and Reconstruction, followed by the backlash of Jim Crow, the KKK, and the lynching epidemic. We know that
now, that's little mini Obama right there. And every Black politician basically sounds this way. You know, I'm a victim. The white man was out to get me. I had it hard growing up because I was poor and Black. You know, that you have to constantly play up all the Black tropes in order to maintain your bona fides as a Black. But as I said, that whole thing is starting to lose its mojo. The whole Black shtick is starting to lose its mojo. The N-word is losing its power. Welfare's getting wiped out. Everything bad is happening all at the same time.
We gonna do maximum warfare against Republicans. Florida Republicans, you F around, you gonna find out all this stuff. And, you know, what I said was, listen, and he's like, oh, if you do the redistricting, we're going to take out all your members. We're going to do all this stuff. And what I
Did the mayor, the governor of Florida, just do a black scent? Well, he was just mocking Hakeem Jeffries. White people in political office are doing black scents. I'm telling you, it's only going to get downhill from here. Today, it's a black scent. Tomorrow, it's blackface.
We gonna do maximum warfare against Republicans. Florida Republicans, you F around, you gonna find out all this stuff.
All this stuff. And I'm not the only one who notices the trends on the horizon. You know, it's like I'm watching the water pull away from the beach, and everybody's just chilling, enjoying the ocean. And I'm like, there's something really funny about the water. I'm not the only one who can tell, though. There's a tidal wave coming.
There is something so insidious happening right now to the Black community, and most white people literally have no idea it's even happening. The Black community is under attack right now at a level we haven't seen probably since the Civil Rights era. You know, with the Supreme Court gutting the Voting Rights Act earlier today. You've got the purge of Black federal workers, attacks on nonprofit funding with the whole DEI boogeyman. You've got attacks on the social safety net. Overt racism is on the rise across the board. And they're tired, y'all. They are exhausted by this onslaught. And it's self-proclaimed white Christians leading the charge against them on all of these fronts. So if you are a white Christian and you are not deceived by Trump, we need to rally together around our Black brothers and sisters right now. We need to form a wall around them, and we need to say no more. No more, because this isn't right.
Now you want to build a wall, huh? You don't want to build a wall. You didn't want to build a wall at the Mexican border, but you want to build a wall around your Negroes. That's very odd. You're very protective of your Blacks all of a sudden. Now you want to put your Blacks behind a wall. Why? Why a wall for the Blacks? What's up with that? You didn't want to build a wall around anything else, but all of a sudden I need to build a wall around these Blacks. I don't want nothing getting in or out without my permission.
Around our Black brothers and sisters on all of these fronts. So if you are a white Christian and you are not deceived by Trump, we need to rally together around our Black brothers and sisters right now. We need to form a wall around them, and we need to say no more. No more, because this isn't right, and we cannot stand by and do nothing as they are getting absolutely pummeled like Reconstruction just ended or something.
You heard him. Like Reconstruction just ended. It's like 1909. It's like Rosewood or something out here.
This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle.
Outrageous. What the Supreme Court just did is outrageous. Chief Justice John Roberts finally got what he's wanted for 40 years, the complete dismantling of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. The court has picked away at voter protections for years, but with the decision they made this week, those protections are all but gone. To give you some background, the Voting Rights Act was created to dismantle the super racist Jim Crow era voter suppression tactics that were being used to disenfranchise minority voters, but particularly Black voters in the South. The Voting Rights Act tried to make all—
Oh my God. Could you imagine? I would hate that, honestly. I would turn that around so hard. I would get fired. If I had to work with her and she started talking this I'm pro-Black shit to me, oh my God, I would get fired. I would wind up reported to HR for my hostile racial attitude.
those unnecessary hurdles that were thrown in front of those voters illegal. And over time, those protections expanded to include language minorities and native voters and voters with disabilities. But the Supreme Court just ruled on a case that centered on the last remaining provision from the Voting Rights Act, which made it illegal to discriminate voting laws or district maps based on race or color. The last nationwide protection against racial discrimination in voting. I mean, the court has already chipped away at the Voting Rights Act, making it easier for states and localities to use gerrymandering in clearly racial ways. But this decision could end up eliminating up to 19 Democrat districts. 19 majority minority.
19 black districts, 19 black and brown districts. Wow. It's kind of a lot, actually.
In clearly racial ways. But this decision could end up eliminating up to 19 Democrat districts. 19 majority minority districts, and that would significantly reduce minority representation in Congress, especially in the South. So if you think that America is a white country where white people should be making all the decisions, then you just got exactly what you want. And once again, black and minority voters will be deprived from having their voices heard. Unacceptable. So what do? We demand a national ban on gerrymandering for any reason. We demand fair and nonpartisan maps in every state. We need what happened in Texas and Florida and Oklahoma and yes, California and Virginia to be illegal. We need all of our maps to be drawn by impartial committees or honestly, a computer.
Oh God, now they want AI controlled districts. You see how desperate they're getting? They really actually rely on the black voting base as a block. I don't think you understand the power that gives them, even especially on local levels. You got to understand how a local map gets drawn, because this isn't even just about federal elections. This was a state case that went federal because of the Supreme Court. If you look at district maps and they're like local areas for like your state, not even state, for like your city council, or then even when it gets to actually House of Representatives, actually, when it goes up to the federal level for the House of Representatives, like a Jasmine Crockett, her type of seat, they basically draw a map around the little racial bubbles. And the map doesn't look like, orderly like a checkerboard because, the black people live here and the white people live there and it's all nice and even. That's not how cities actually lay out. Sometimes there's little stretches and odd little hook tails and just cul-de-sacs and shit like that where people live. So the racial dynamics don't just chart out easily like, a grid. So what they wind up doing is drawing all these bizarre shapes going up and down different streets and over and under different hills and gullies and making sure they draw the map around the voters that they want to appeal to. And the way they did that was typically based on race. Now that whole thing is done.
To be drawn, completely isolated from politics. Put our states on a freaking grid if you have to. No district should look like a child drew a duck in a car just to favor a certain party. And to be clear, this was all in a bill called the For the People's Act, or House Resolution 1 in 2021. A bill that was intended to expand voting rights, to reduce the influence of money in politics, and yes, to ban partisan gerrymandering. And all the Democrats voted yes for it, and all the Republicans voted no. That bill is already written, so bring it back. The House of Representatives is supposed to represent the people. This becomes less and less likely if politicians just get to pick and choose their voters. We had to write laws to stop politicians from disenfranchising Americans, and the Supreme Court just overturned the biggest protection we had. So I need you to call your member of Congress right now. I need you to tell them you are unhappy with this recent Supreme Court decision to gut the Voting Rights Act and that you support a national ban on gerrymandering. Because the people don't benefit when the people's voices are silenced. And even if you are the reddest of red Republican MAGAs, you are still the people. So don't disenfranchise yourself. Call Congress. We need to stop this now.
Hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad.
This is about targeting empowering women of color in the United States of America. Don't tell me, because I didn't get a single apology when my life was threatened. Thank you.
Hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad.
Yesterday, the Supreme Court made a decision that will have a profound impact on American voting rights. ABC News senior political correspondent Rachel Scott broke it down. Take a look.
In a ruling that could reshape the future makeup of Congress, the Supreme Court limiting the use of race to determine how congressional districts are drawn, slicing away at the landmark Voting Rights Act, signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965 at the height of the Civil Rights Movement. It came after a group of white voters in Louisiana argued one of the state's 2 majority black districts was improperly drawn, relying too heavily on race. Tonight, the court's 6 conservative justices agreed. Justice Samuel Alito writing, allowing race to play any part in government decision-making represents a departure from the constitutional rule. Justice Elena Kagan declaring, if other states follow Louisiana's lead, the minority citizens residing there will no longer have an equal opportunity to elect candidates of their choice.
So, you know, this decision.
This is a literal hose mad moment. This is the best hose mad moment that life could give you right now. They're all really bent out of shape. Shout out to The View.
We knew this was coming because they've been chipping away at this for a long time. The court said, you know, there's no problem with race anymore, and yet we're fighting every day talking about Project 2025. We know what's happening, and it's happening. It's going to start happening to women as well, because all these changes in voting where they're saying you can't use your...
Oh, please, God, take their rights away. Oh, please tell me that's coming next. God, you're too good to me. I know you wouldn't do this. I know you're not going to take their rights away. That's the next thing, at least take some of their rights away, all right? The chicks on welfare, take their rights away first, all right? You don't need to vote. We'll keep giving you food and money. Just stop voting.
Make it stop. Make the hurt stop, please.
We know what's happening, and it's happening. It's going to start happening to women as well, because all these changes in voting where they're saying you can't use your married name, you got to go get your birth certificate. So this is going to affect a lot of people. Right now, it sounds like it's just affecting people of color. We know better. We knew this was coming. So this is meant to discourage you from voting. This is meant to make you feel like you don't have a voice. You do have a voice. Do not forget that. But do you see it as a step backwards also?
I think it's a huge setback. I mean, the 1965 Voting Rights Act was the most important piece of legislation in United States.
People died for
history. Yeah.
Really, was it though? Was it really the most important voting, the legislation ever? I don't know. I happen to think maybe the 13th, was it the 13th Amendment? Whatever that amendment was that got us off the farm. I think that was way more important than whatever they did in 1965. You boomer niggas really keep patting yourselves on the back way too hard about that shit.
Actually, Justice Kagan, in her 48-page dissent, said that it was the most important piece because it was born of the literal blood of Union soldiers and civil rights marchers.
Yeah.
She wrote that. And it has been gutted. People are saying, well, it hasn't really been gutted. It has been. And that is because the majority opinion was written by Samuel Alito, the same judge that wrote the decision that took away a lot of women's rights.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the conservative court, just getting victory after victory. The women on The View are just literally afraid. They are scared to death. I don't want to play all of The View thing because you know how they're going to get with their copyrights and shit.
100 years of racist Jim Crow terror.
How big is this moment?
I think it's huge. I think it's devastating. It's the end of an era. This is the bill that John Lewis was beaten almost to death to get passed. This was the crowning achievement of the civil rights era, the crowning achievement of Dr. King's life work. It's part of why he was murdered. It brought America.
You know, it's crazy. It really is erasing a piece of the boomer legacy. You know, the whole civil rights, Al Sharpton, Rainbow Coalition, National Action Network.
This is the bill.
I was just talking about this last week, where that whole era is kind of fading away. They're an aging group. That whole boomer political body, they're an aging group. And for one, a lot of the younger people are either disinterested or even further to the left in one way or another, which makes them a lot harder to manage and deal with politically. And so it's almost like the boomers have left nothing behind and nowhere to go for the youth going forward politically. It's just all like revolution nonstop until we all go off the cliff.
That John Lewis was beaten almost to death to get passed. This was the crowning achievement of the civil rights era, the crowning achievement of Dr. King's life work. It's part of why he was murdered. It brought America out of this horrific past that we've been stuck in for 200 plus years of enslavement, 100 years of racist Jim Crow terror, lynchings, no rights, no protection. This was the moment that we really became a democratic republic in the full sense of the word. Dr. King kind of becomes the final founder of this republic in that moment. To take that, ball it up, and throw it in the toilet, flush it, and have the president crowing about it is devastating because these states, I'm a Southerner, I grew up in Tennessee.
Yep.
These states still.
You know, we gotta stop. A late final founder. Let me run that back. What did you say about Dr. Martin Luther King?
Is devastating because these states, I'm a Southerner, I grew up in Tennessee.
Yep.
These states still the moment that we really became a democratic republic in the full sense of the word. Dr. King kind of becomes the final founder.
Dr. King was now a final founder. You see how like the constant like glazing of the whole civil rights era is kind of now coming to an end. All this self-aggrandizement, what have you done with it, right? Because let's say Dr. King and all of his greatness was all that great. What has it really gotten? The whole, Black effort. To this day, you guys, this whole political cadre, you are the ones telling everybody Black America is technically worse off now than we were even before then. So which one is it?
Of this republic in that moment. To take that, ball it up, and throw it in the toilet, flush it, and have the president crowing about it is devastating because these states, I'm a Southerner, I grew up in Tennessee.
Yep.
These states still have that unfortunate legacy where everybody's not treated fairly and everybody knows it. And yet now the Supreme Court says we're going to turn a blind eye to that, not just history of discrimination, but the present tense of it. Not good.
And the implications, I mean, you're talking about something obviously existential in many ways. The implications practically, Congressman, are such that could actually affect the way these midterms go. Right. It's been quite a while where if you looked at any betting market or polls or whatever, when it comes to the House, never mind the Senate, but the House, Democrats had a huge advantage. That could shift, right? You're seeing this happening in state after state. And you had Marsha Blackburn today. She is now calling for the elimination of all Democratic seats in the state of Tennessee, your home state.
Absolutely.
Okay, as a result, we should talk about the Voting Rights Act, going to make that entire state red with her proposal. Florida lawmakers today passed Governor DeSantis's push, which would attempt to give Republicans 4 more seats.
Damn. Look how red them states about to get. You understand what they about to do to you niggas? They might start flogging niggas in the downtown public square again. That's how red these states are about to get. We about to make flogging great again. You ever see a nigga get flogged? There's going to be car thieves and home invaders and shit strung up in the public square. These states have never been this red in your lifetimes.
in Florida. That could mean the House. I mean, this could be game, set, match.
Well, I think in the short term, there will be limit what states can do because voting has already begun in many places. Now, Florida, they're going to try to squeeze out 4 seats. Now, I think it's a big lift. Ask the guys in Texas. They think they're creating 5 additional Republican seats. They'll be lucky to win 3 of them. So that's a problem. You just pointed out Tennessee. Tennessee has 1 African-American majority district that's in Memphis, represented by a white congressman, Steve Cohen.
Damn. I need to take a drink. I need to take a drink. Let me ponder that. They have 1 district. They have 1 black district represented by a guy named Cohen. It's amazing.
So, yeah, this is a setback for the Voting Rights Act. By the way, I voted to reauthorize it in 2006.
Right.
That was the last time for 25 years, and obviously there have been these intervening court
Yes.
rulings. And here we are. By the way, it was an overwhelming vote. It was Republican Congress, Republican President George Bush. So we've come a long way.
Well, it shows how things have changed.
But I just think it's so important to recognize that, because when it was time, and you were a great hero on this, when it was time to reauthorize it, Congress looked at it and said, we think there's still problems here. We need to reauthorize it. And it was bipartisan, massive majority. George W. Bush signed it. So what you have is, in that short period of time, a decade or so, a different bunch of Republicans decided, we just don't care. We would rather win seats than to make sure we have a democratic republic that treats everybody fair.
It is pretty incredible, though, and what you point.
This whole bit about treat everybody fair, it comes off as begging. It comes off as groveling. It comes off as pleading. Why is everybody always picking on me? Is Black America the victim of adult bullying? Is that effectively what your political position is? Is that why you exist in politics? Because Black people are the victims of adult bullying? Because that's what people who talk about, like, fairness, everybody should get a turn, that type of shit. These are like middle school teachers, or not even middle. These are like elementary daycare worker values. These are the values of the women who watch children that you drop off with diapers and bottles of milk and shit like that. You give them a change of diapers and make sure they get an extra set of clothes in case they shit on themselves or throw up or something like that. These are the values of the women who take care of those type of children, that age of children, right? The idea that everything is always supposed to be maximally fair for everybody. These are literally daycare values. And the Black elected people, like especially the way Van Jones was talking about fairness, that's basically what Black politics works to represent, quote, fairness for Blacks, because allegedly everybody's always adult bullying Black people. And think about that for a minute. I want you to think about Black people, right? Like, close your eyes. Let's do a thought exercise, right? Think about Black people as you just imagine us casually in the world, right? Just out here, just being Black and wonderful out in the world, right? Now, imagine other people just randomly and on a regular basis adult bullying the very Black people that you can now imagine in your mind. Does that even make sense to you? That somehow these very Black people that you have imagined, that you're picturing right now, close your eyes and think really Black about it. Now imagine some other group of people is bullying these people. Of all the people in this country, outside of maybe the Mexican mafia, nobody's bullying these people. The cops aren't even bullying these people. But that's what they want you to think. They want you to believe that basically vote for me because I'm Black and Black people get bullied.
Hello, everybody. This is Congressman Hank Johnson representing Georgia's 4th Congressional District. Over my shoulder, you see the United States Supreme Court looming in the background. I'm sorry to report, ladies and gentlemen, that these folks are trying to take us back to a time.
This nigga is an adult victim of bullying. Oh my God, I can't stop seeing it. This nigga is a victim of adult bullying. This is workplace bullying. And shout out to Red Illusion, that is great. And what do you do if you're being bullied? You tell an adult. That's what he's trying to do right now. He's trying to tell an adult. We've been bullied in our place of work. Look, I work back there. You see that building behind my shoulder? That's where I work. And those white people in there are being mean to me because I'm black and I have gigantic nostrils.
Hello, everybody. This is Congressman Hank Johnson representing Georgia's 4th Congressional District. Over my shoulder, you see the United States Supreme Court looming in the background. I'm sorry to report, ladies and gentlemen, that these folks are trying to take us back to a time when black folks had no rights. They're taking away our ability to elect the representatives of our choice. That's what they did in gutting the Voting Rights Act yesterday.
No, that's not what they did. You can vote for whomever is running. The people who want to run are still going to run. And you can still vote for these people if you like, but they're just going to make it a lot harder for you to win just because you're black. I will just be blunt about that. That's really the ultimate effect of what that Supreme Court ruling did. You know, that's the practical application of what it did. They made it harder to draw a line around the black districts and then find a suitable Negro to represent these Negroes, right? We're not really doing that then. We might find a suitable Negro and you can vote for him, but he's not just going to be guaranteed that all these Negroes in the district belong to him now. It's going to be chopped up in a little bit more of a, I don't know what way they're going to chop it up, but they can't chop it up with purely racial intent anymore, which is basically what they were arguing for.
It's an abominable ruling up there with Plessy versus Ferguson and Dred Scott as far
Not
as I'm
Dred
concerned.
Scott. Do you know what Dred Scott was? Wasn't that the nigga that put himself in a boxcar to try to mail himself to freedom? Do you really think that's what this is about? Niggas gonna have to mail themselves to freedom now just to vote? What do you mean? Why are you even bringing up Dred Scott? This is what I mean. These niggas are too dramatic. They are too dramatic, crying about being bullied and shit. Shout out to Rational B with the $10. He said 5 for this instant classic and another 5 for the Jared Taylor Speaks at MD College show. You know what? I did see that Jared Taylor was at a college recently. You know, I'm tuned in to like the white news world or whatever. I noticed a disturbance in the white side of politics. They don't like Jared Taylor speaking publicly. So him talking at a college is a big thing. But shout out to Rational B with the $10, y'all. Smash that super chat button for me. And also, please support the show on Venmo at The Hood Conservative. Please, thank you for donating. Like, share, and subscribe. And be like Rational B. Smash that super chat button just for me, y'all.
Hulk! Smash! Smash you! You make Hulk angry. You not like Hulk angry. Hulk no like fighting girls.
But that's what we have, ladies and gentlemen, a 6-3 MAGA majority on the United States Supreme Court. What do? One thing we can do is pass term limits. I'm gonna be pushing that bill to the highest degree.
Now they want to rig the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court was the very last check on you niggas literally running amok. And what made it even dope is they had an actual based black man who has become like the unsung champion of stopping you niggas from running amok with your rights and your liberties and shit.
And we also need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Thank you. Have a great day. Hello, everybody. This is Congressman Hank Johnson representing Georgia's 4th Congressional.
What do you say to a room full of lawyers and advocates who are going to have to figure out what comes next?
Okay, being very candid.
Please.
Shit, this was supposed to happen in June. That honestly is the first thing I said when I found out.
They got Kamala
What do
out
you
here
say
cursing,
to a room
y'all.
full of lawyers
Are
and
you running for
advocates
governor?
who
Why
are
is
going
the
to have to
Democrats
figure
all
out
of a
what
sudden
comes
using all this
next?
dirty language?
Okay, being very candid.
Please.
Shit, this was supposed to happen in June.
Supreme Court just issued a ruling on a potentially groundbreaking redistricting case that could impact, for many years to come, the power of minority voters in this country. It focuses on the constitutionality of Louisiana's congressional map and how it was redrawn. The justices determined if Louisiana lawmakers properly balance constitutional and Voting Rights Act protections. I want to get straight to CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford, who has been reading through the opinion. Jan?
Well, Major, we just got this ruling within the last couple minutes. The justices in a 6-3 vote, a decision written by Justice Samuel Alito for the other 5 conservatives, are striking down a second majority black district in Louisiana, ruling that state officials focused on race, and that amounted to an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. Now, this decision is a major one under the Voting Rights Act. It will go well beyond Louisiana. It's going to make it, based on what we're seeing so far, it will make it harder for state officials to draw up these so-called majority-minority districts, which have been used for decades and have increased black representation and minority representation in Congress. And it also—
No more just intentionally drawn black districts, all right? We're gonna have to draw the districts on some other principle. You can't draw a bubble around your Negroes and say, all right, we just need a Negro to run. We need that one nigga and 9,999. What was that line from Django? Just that one nigga in 10,000? That's who we need to represent these niggas that we done drew a line around. The Democrats have been using the political Django strategy. They just got to find that one good nigga to represent all these other dumb niggas, and then they shit gonna work good on Candyland.
And to question about a dozen or so existing majority minority districts, mostly in the South. Now, those districts, as you know, Major, have been away for—
No more head nigga in charge. That's a great way to put it. Thank you. Perfect. Perfect. No more head nigga in charge.
Democrats to pick up seats in some of those states, those red states in the South. So this ruling is a win, I think we can say, for Republicans. But legally, this is a Supreme Court that going back 20 years or more has been saying in case after case, a consistent line of cases, that the Constitution is colorblind. And that's why we've seen the Supreme Court do things like throw out affirmative action in college admissions. This line of cases very consistent with the court's ruling today. What about the midterms? I think this ruling coming today, 6 months after it was argued back in October, may come too late to have an impact on these upcoming midterm elections. I think the focus will be going forward, limiting states from considering race when they're trying to consciously and intentionally draw up districts to increase minority representation. That means, Major, that you might not have as many of those kind of ink blocked states or states that have districts that zigzag like a Z, where they go from, like this one did, from Shreveport all the way down 250 miles to Baton Rouge, scooping up black voters along the way to, again, pick up voters to get enough black voters there to have that majority. So I think, that will restrict some of those cases.
You know what this really means? Look at the red on the map. In a grand sense of the word, the white man he's so fucking back. The white man is back, y'all.
Fuck you.
Districts for sure. Looking at this decision, it's 37 pages long. There is a dissent by liberal Justice Elena Kagan that appears to be longer than the majority, and it looks like a barn burner. She is saying that today's ruling will is gutting the Voting Rights Act and will call into peril some of the accomplishments that we've seen over that historic 1960 1965 law that really dismantled Jim Crow and systemic barriers to voting for Black people in the South. Of course, the Supreme Court today, as they have in recent decisions on voting rights, is saying the country has moved past that. It's time to stop intentionally focusing on race.
Right. We're going to stop pretending that people are bullying Black people. All right. That's all they're really going to do. We're going to stop pretending that you're getting adult bullied. All right. Nobody's bullying you. Just vote for the people that are running and stop crying about your Blackness.
And as Chief Justice John Roberts said in a case back in 2007, the way to end discrimination, race discrimination based on race, is to stop discriminating based on race. And this Supreme Court, with those 6 conservative justices, believes that racial preferences, whether it's in affirmative action, whether it's in redistricting, that can amount to unconstitutional race discrimination, Major.
They think 19 seats could be at all throughout the South. The question will be the timing. Is this a 2028 play? Is this a 2026 play? There are some primaries.
It is not just Tennessee either. This was a case that came from Louisiana, went all the way to the Supreme Court, right? This is a national ruling. This is a nationwide issue now.
Here coming up, not until later in the cycle, August 6th, there's one in Tennessee. That's Steve Cohen's seat. That's a majority minority district. That's an August 6th. The one Democratic seat there. The Jim Clyburn seat in South Carolina. That is the Democratic seat in South Carolina. That's a June 9th primary. Jamie, this shows you the ramifications long term for this ruling.
Absolutely. Just think about that number, 19 seats in play.
You know what, Ms. Cantrell? This looks like a de facto red wave, actually. I mean, look at this projection. Just because that the fact that the Democrats were so heavily reliant upon solidifying the Black vote and then having those Black representatives or those representatives of the Black districts kind of fluff their numbers up. Once you took that away, the projections are horrible for them, right? It's a de facto red wave. It's a red wave by fiat.
And let's look at this politically. Laura, you talked about confusion going into this race. We're worried about voter suppression. Apart from the long-term impact, we are going to see people take advantage of that confusion. There is going to be, these midterms are so high stakes that anybody who thinks they can take advantage, on the state level of this decision, there is going to be a scramble to see if they can, because each side thinks this is an existential midterm with the House, especially.
Yeah.
The Isaiah Factor Uncensored start.
Changes how our elections work. The Voting Rights Act has been a safety net to make sure every person's vote counts equally, regardless of their race, for decades. Today, the court weakened that net. In a new ruling, they've made it much more harder for citizens to challenge unfair voting maps, giving state politicians more power to decide how districts are drawn. It also comes amid a broader push for mid-decade redistricting. At least 6 states have redrawn their maps so far. We felt it right here in the state of Texas. President Trump is pushing more Republicans to follow suit.
I mean, some states don't need to redraw, and some do. I know what the concept of the rule, and I just haven't seen the result. Yeah, I would say generally, I would think that they would want to do it. Some are greatly helped, and some, it didn't make much difference. Yeah, I would say they would do that. They have time to do it.
According to some critics, today's decision from the Supreme Court hollows out a landmark law. Let's get to our guests on the Factor Uncensored tonight. Joining us, political analyst Dr. Dietrich.
See, now, Ms. Cantrell, you got to understand, his name may in fact be spelled in a different manner traditionally. And if you say that phonetically, it doesn't sound the way it's spelled, right? And you might be correct. You might be correct in your observation. But do you really want to be a racist? I think that's the question you have to ask yourself when you say his name, Isaiah, and you look at the spelling. Don't get caught up in rules of phonetics and the English language and all the King's English. Don't trivialize your brain with such issues. Just ask yourself, how racist am I? That's all you really need to do when you look at his name. I mean, I understand your issue with it. I do, but I'm just here to help. I am really just here to help.
Von Biedenfeld, University of Houston downtown professor Dr. David Branham, and Texas State Representative Jolanda Jones, and Ron Reynolds, both state representatives, and Angela Botts, conservative. Glad to have you all on the Factor Uncensored. Are you cheering this, Angela? What?
Well, I will say this. This did not kill the Voting Rights Act. It's basically, the Democrats are out there having an absolute cow right now because taking away race-based preferences in districting, I guess, is racist. This is, we're in a far different time than we were in 1865, in 1965, and perhaps Democrats should come up with some policies that people want to vote for. Because I'll tell you what, I lived in LA for a long time. My vote didn't mean jack, okay? But I still went out and voted. So unless someone is physically sitting on you, you have the right to go vote. And I suggest everybody exercise that right.
Dr. Brett.
And that is a reality. When you go over to when you live in, let's say in a major urban area, you can be as Republican as you want, but you showing up to the polls means nothing. There just aren't enough of you condensed into those areas. And they probably, drew the map in such a way that Republicans rarely get, a real good representation in these urban areas, right? Like even in a place like New York City, I think the Republicans are in Staten Island, because that's where a lot of the white and Italians have retired to. They retreated from Brooklyn and they went into Staten Island, and they can be Republican there. They got a nice little area. They pay property taxes and shit. They can afford to block they can afford to like a little bit of a firewall, basically, right? But in general, urban areas are just a Democrat swamp, and you can't really vote your way through it. You almost will never have the right numbers.
Your assessment of this ruling from the Supreme Court.
Well, this ruling was actually pretty much made 33 years ago in Shaw versus Reno, when they said that you can't have race-based districts. But this ruling takes it a step further, because after Shaw versus Reno, Bush versus Vera said that you could consider race. Now they're basically saying you can't consider it anymore. So it's supposed to be a somewhat of a blind redistricting process, which we all know is impossible. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing is across the country, we're seeing a complete mess with redistricting in states where they're basically taking your vote and throwing it away because they know how you're going to vote, and they draw districts to get an outcome. They don't draw districts to have an election. And that's the problem that I really have with this. And I think the Supreme Court has got a problem with the Constitution not really clarifying on this, what they can do. And I think it's time for a constitutional amendment to get rid of this gerrymandering altogether and let people have their vote back.
All right, Dr. Man, what's your name?
This really is a black show. Dr. Man, what's your name, is?
Constitutional amendment to get rid of this gerrymandering altogether and let people have their vote back.
All right, Dr. Man, what's your name?
This is going to be a rare occasion. I guess we were situated appropriately. I lean a little bit more towards Angela's point of view, which is that
I could almost tell by the way he started talking. This nigga's a Republican. I could literally hear the Republican in his voice, y'all. That's why he started messing with him. That's why the really black nigga over here was teasing him. Isaiah over there. He like, what's your name, man? Because this is a light-skinned Republican nigga.
this is going to be a rare occasion. I guess we were situated appropriately. I lean a little bit more towards Angela's point of view, which is that the court has been moving this direction for quite a while. And I don't exactly agree with Dr. Brandon because I think race is still something that we can consider, but in a very minuscule context. The court has been abrogating their duty and sending everything back to Article 1, saying basically, if it's political gerrymandering, we don't have to like it, but we're not going to touch it. They did that in 2017 with Rucho. They've continuously backed off from the idea, as we've allegedly, at least chronologically, evolved from 1865, and they say we don't need to really get into this idea of an ethnic a differentiation of votes. And so the court has really said this is a political problem. The challenge becomes if you ask people to voice their opinion at the polls to change these things, but you've concurrently removed their representation, I don't know how you ever actually get to a solution because the majority will continue to trample on the minority right.
And Representative Jones, we've seen the decimation of minority districts here in Texas already. Your thoughts about where we're going with this ruling from the Supreme Court?
So let me say this. I know exactly how anti-Black the race.
One of the problems I think I'm having with this whole minority district issue, maybe one of the reasons why the minority districts are poor and poorly run and overrun with crime is because the politics are the way they are, right? Maybe you need to shake up the box a little bit. Maybe it's really that, sometimes you just got to shake things up a little bit and see what falls out. Because you guys clearly aren't running your districts to your own satisfaction,
Since redistricting was here in Texas, that's why Rev Reynolds and I jetted and ran and went to New York and Chicago and wherever else we went to try to stop this. But they are decimating votes. The Calais case, which is what the Supreme Court ruled on today, actually was a case where the courts in Louisiana said that the maps that were drawn after the 2020 census diluted Black vote. And they ordered them to go and create another Black district because they had way less percentage in their congressional representation. So they go and they do exactly what the court said because there was historic discrimination and dilution of the Black vote. And
does the quote Black vote need literal ethnic political representation? Because here's the problem, right? If you're going to tell me that a Black vote deserves its own constitutionally backed political representation, then they can't limit it to just the Black vote, right? That means every other racially racial ethnic group would get their own vote, right? Which would take you to a direct tribal politics effectively. And I think it's probably a dangerous thing for the Black vote to just constantly lock itself into Blackness. I think you kind of start to get a little bit of a political myopia. You can only see things through this, quote, Black lens now.
And then they come back. And what the Supreme Court has done, and they did this in our case, the case where we challenged what they did with our redistricting, is the court has said that you can politically gerrymander, but you can't racistly gerrymander. Well, if they say the maps in 2020 were racist, how do you fix it without considering the Black vote? And so
you don't consider the Black vote. That's literally what we're talking about. It's not the Black vote. It's not the white vote. I mean, if you're going to say Democrats and Republicans and it just happens to wash out as Black, fine, right? But then you know what this also starts to bring up? There is no problem with what a so-called disparate impact. That's the next thing that's going to get chipped away politically, right? Because if you're going to tell me that I can discriminate politically but not racially, when that political discrimination takes on a racial outcome, you can't touch it. You can't touch it. because now one law is going to clash against another. And I promise you, they're going to get rid of disparate impact because it's dumb. Disparate impact is a dumb legal concept on its face. Listen, sometimes people have disparate behavior, which leads to disparate impact because you're going to get processed by the law disparately, you know?
The Supreme Court came down 6-3, Republican versus Democrat, and they're just rubber stamping Trump's anti-blackness, and it's bothersome because what they're going to do is crack us and pack us into districts, and they're going to dilute. So they're going to come and they're going to divide up Houston, they're going to come and they're going to divide up Dallas, and they're going to make sure black vote doesn't cost as much. And the people that are going to be on the chopping block this legislative session are us, black state representative. What you think?
And you know what? Democrats can no longer be handcuffed by the black vote either. It goes both ways, right? The black vote is losing its political cohesion, quite literally. They're probably going to chop these districts up in a way that makes them less overtly black. And then at the same time, the Democrats are literally like, you know what? I finally can stop appeasing you niggas. That's really, and I think that the shrewd political players are going to move in that direction. When you're really like politically astute and you have your thumb on the vein of the people, you understand these niggas don't matter anymore. That's really what's becoming a reality. These niggas are mattering less and less now going forward.
Because there are a lot of people in this country who do not like Black women, but Black women are the base of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, he does look afraid of her big self. Look at the body language between him and her right now. Look, the way this shit going, I bet you this nigga in the brown suit gonna become a Republican in a few years. The only remaining Democrats are gonna be big, beastie, bald-headed black women.
Well, there you go. What do you think?
Isaiah, this is a very dark day. I believe that John Lewis and other freedom fighters who made good trouble to pass the Voting Rights Act, they risked their lives to pass and end Jim Crow in this country. They're turning over their graves because what the Trump Supreme Court...
Your legacy of the civil rights legacy is officially over. I think that's ultimately what we're deciding right now as a nation officially with, the Supreme Court. Because we are a civilized nation, we do things with official business. We are officially over the civil rights legacy. I think that's basically what the Supreme Court is ruling on. And it's not only legalistic, it's very symbolic and emotional too for these niggas.
Did today was a slap in the face. They basically are diluting the ability for Black and brown communities to elect their representatives. And I wouldn't be the first African-American representative in Fort Bend County since Reconstruction if it wasn't for the passage of the Voting Rights Act. The Congressional Black Caucus is going to be decimated. This is going to have far-reaching impact that goes...
Damn, no more Congressional Black Caucus. It's just going to be a handful of niggas. Are we going to go back to 13% of the House? Is that what it's going to be? Maybe Black America needs to, because think about it. And I'm throwing this number out there. You can correct me, but I bet you Black folk being 13% of the country, we got like 20% of the representation. Maybe we need to trim these numbers back. You niggas been wearing shoes that were too big for you. And now we're going to get back to 13% of the representation.
Beyond Congress, it's going to go to state rep, state senate, county commissioner, city council seats. This is a...
Oh, you know what? That's a great point, too. You know what, Jesse? Thank you for reminding me. This is really why I have no sympathy for none of these Black politicians, right? The Congressional Black Caucus, every one of you niggas, except for the Republicans who don't really caucus with the Blacks anyway. The Black Republicans aren't really friendly with the Blacks like that for the most part, as it should be. But all of you Black elected officials who got, voted in because you're blackety black, I'm Black, y'all. I'm blacker than black. I'm Black, y'all. Vote for me. All you niggas like that, they all are working really hard to get Latino immigration solidified in this country. They're working against their own black people. That's the ultimate joke, though. This is why I have no sympathy for none of these black politicians, because you betrayed your black vote. And even though from an objective standpoint, I might take constitutional issue with the very idea of the black voting block and all that, like I got no problem with the Supreme Court ruling. Your job, you had one job. You niggas had one job, which was to represent black people. And now you're all learning how to speak Spanish and eat rice and beans and shit.
This is turning back the clock to Jim Crow in this country.
And Dr. Branham, really quick, what will Texas look like in the future if this holds?
Well, you see that Texas has a lot more white Republicans that are going to get elected. Now, I think that they've diluted their districts quite a bit.
Well,
and
the white man is back. A lot more white Republicans are going to get elected. Hell, this keeps up. A lot more white babies are going to get born. You know, white women like a man with some power in the office and shit. More white babies are coming.
Holds.
Well, you see that Texas has a lot more white Republicans that are going to get elected. Now, I think that they've diluted their districts quite a bit, and the Republicans are vulnerable right now in this next election because things aren't going well for them. But the other thing that I would like to point out is that you don't have to have an African-American majority district to elect an African-American. Congressional District 18 is not African-American majority district, but many African-Americans get elected in those types of districts. So I don't think that the dilution.
You niggas just gonna have to compete. Is it really that hard? You niggas just gonna have to compete, all right? You know what you're gonna have to do? Build a better Negro. Yeah. All right, the game is getting tougher, the competition is getting wider, and you're gonna have to build a better Negro for the world coming. All right, we don't need any more of you 1965, I got beat up by the white man long time ago ass niggas. We need modern niggas for modern problems, all right? Build a better Negro.
So the moment you came in, I was in meetings, my phone's blowing up. Did you see what President Obama just tweeted? I'm like, what did he just tweet? So just so you know, I haven't even looked into this. So we're both going green into this. And I'm curious to know what you're going to say about this. So President Obama tweeted this 2 hours and 14 minutes before you and I started the podcast. Today's Supreme Court decision effectively guts a key pillar of the voting rights.
Hey, Red. I don't like how you said build black better. I'm reading it in my mind, and I feel like you said black really hard, but that's basically what it is, right? You have to build a better black. It's like the white men are challenging you. Black America, the white man is calling you out. Can you build a better black or not? We're tired of you 1965 blacks. We need a new black for a new America. We've done all we can do with these old niggas. We need a new nigga for a new America.
Act freeing state legislatures to gerrymander legislative districts to systematically dilute and weaken the voting power of racial minorities so long as they do it under the guise of partisanship rather than explicit racial bias. And it serves as just one more example of how a majority of the current court seems intent on abandoning its vital role in ensuring equal participation in our democracy and protecting the rights of minority groups against minority overreach. The good news is that such setbacks can be overcome, but that will only happen if citizens across the country who cherish our democratic ideals continue to mobilize and vote in record numbers, not just in the upcoming midterms or in high-profile races, but in every election and every level. If you want to go to the story, Rob, so I can read it, and I'll turn it over to you. So New York Times, so Supreme Court weakens a landmark civil rights era law and aids GOP efforts to control the House. If you want to go a little bit lower, Supreme Court on Wednesday hollowed a landmark civil rights era law that increased minority representation in Congress and elsewhere, striking down the majority black congressional district in Louisiana and opening the door for more redistricting across the country that could aid Republicans' effort to control the House. Ruling 6-3, the court's conservative majority found that Louisiana's district, represented by Democrat Cleo Fields, relied too heavily on race, and Chief Justice John Roberts described the 6th congressional district as a snake that stretches more than 200 miles to link parts of Shreveport, Alexandria, Lafayette, and Baton Rouge. The map is an unconstitutional gerrymander, said Samuel Alito, wrote for 6 conservatives. And if you show the map, Rob, I think there's a breakdown by New York Times. If you want to go to the New York Times article.
You know what this ruling also kind of what it says without saying is that for the longest time now, the Democrat hold on the black vote has effectively been unconstitutional. All right? All you black blue niggas are unconstitutional. All you vote blue no matter who niggas, unconstitutional. All you voter die Diddy oil niggas, unconstitutional. Always have been, always will be.
That if Connor hasn't sent it to you yet, New York Times, what should you put in it? I think the main, while I'm talking to the governor, he sent it to me. It's a New York Times story. I don't know if you have it or not. So is that the one? Okay. While you're doing this, what are your thoughts about this, the story and what Barack Obama just said?
So I think what President Obama said is absolutely correct, where it feels very odd that you can say that we are okay with partisan gerrymandering, but no other forms, especially when you consider the fact that over 92% of this country has congressional maps that are not competitive. This country is so gerrymandered. And it's actually embarrassing in the way that it's been gerrymandered. I have long believed that we need national redistricting reform, because this is not okay where we continue to have politicians that are picking their voters instead of voters picking their politicians. We need to have national gerrymandering reform.
Now, I'm going to say something. Westmore isn't horrible as, black Democrat representatives go. Well, he's a governor, but still, like, the image is what I'm really speaking to, right? He's likable. He has good qualities. Now, his politics, who knows? He's a Democrat, so he's probably gay. But this is kind of like a starting base for like what I was joking about earlier, build a better Negro. You're probably going to have to start with him.
I also know that what's happening right now and what we are continuing to see and why this is such a heated issue for a lot of people is you think about what's happening right now in just the past year, where these decisions that are being made by the Trump-Vance administration on going after these basic democratic frameworks, right? The idea that we should nationalize elections, even though we know that's unconstitutional. Like part of the beauty of the Constitution is there are state rights. We are in control of our elections. Mm-hmm. So we should not be nationalizing elections. The idea that somehow we should get rid of mail-in balloting, which actually we sued, Maryland. I sued the Trump administration on this, and we're going to win in court on this because the president and the federal government does not have the authority to do that. That when the president's talking about things like, well, we should take control of the ballot boxes and we need your voter rolls. Again, unconstitutional. The fact that the president is calling up Florida and Texas and Missouri and North Carolina and saying, you all should do mid-decade redistricting. By the way, everyone else, you can't, but you all should do it. This is blatant, what is happening right now. And what's happening right now is this is an assault on the basic democratic framework and the basic democratic values.
What are the democratic values? That's actually the problem. And even going deeper, let's move that. Let's move that aside. What are black values, politically speaking? This is why the whole black ethnic bloc problem, the whole black ethnic bloc is a problem, because ultimately, beyond just everybody being black, there isn't really a coherent value set that they're actually working toward or working for. And then ironically, while politically they're trying to keep a stranglehold on the black vote, President Trump is gaining ground with black voters. It's fucking crazy. Everything is up in the air today.
President Trump celebrated after the Supreme Court's decision. Here's that moment.
When did it come out? Just now?
No, it came out this morning, but basically very much narrows the Voting Rights Act.
Was it considered a win for who?
A win for Republicans.
I love it.
CNN's chief data analyst, Harry Enton, running the numbers on this one. Harry, let's kind of baseline it for everyone right now. How is the president doing right now with African-American voters, with black voters now versus this point in the first term?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now in the numbers is President Trump and the Republican Party are chipping away at the long-term advantage that Democrats have had with black voters, with African-Americans. You can see it right here. Look, Trump's approval among African-Americans at this point in term one, he was at 12%. You know, he's been losing ground with a lot of people. He's gaining ground with African Americans. He's up to 16% at this point. And you say, this isn't that big of a shift. But I will tell you, Republicans absolutely love this shift that's going on because Democrats have had such a long-term advantage. The fact that he's actually gaining ground versus where he was in term number one, this has major implications for elections down the line because Democrats, especially in a lot of these tight races, you talk about places like Georgia, right down in the South, you see this type of movement for Trump actually gaining ground. This could have major ramifications and help put Republicans over the top in a number of southern places in the midterm elections.
But do you see this as part of a bigger trend?
I see this as absolutely part of a bigger trend. Donald Trump's Republican Party is absolutely gaining ground, not just him gaining in terms of his approval rating, but look at the party ID margin, Kate, because this to me was absolutely stunning. Look at this party ID margin among African Americans. At this point in Trump term number one, Democrats had a 63-point advantage. That is absolutely fallen. Look at where it is now. A double-digit shift away. Democrats, of course, still have the advantage, but it's a 12-point shift to the Republican Party. And I look back through Gallup's records. They sent me their records. And this, in fact, lead that Democrats have is actually smaller than any lead from 2006 to 2021. So Democrats are leading. But again, we're talking about chipping away. Republicans are chipping away at this long-term advantage that Democrats have had among African Americans. We see it in terms of Trump's approval rating, and we even see it to a wider degree among the party ID margin, where all of a sudden there are a number of African Americans who are walking away from the Democratic Party and a number of them who are walking into the Republican tent.
You know, the thing here, and Dylan James, you make a great point. He says he's so excited, like blacks make Republicans cool now. Actually, blacks only make Democrats cool. I don't know if the black vote will make Republicans cool in the same way, because you know what I think is going to happen? As the black vote becomes less important to the Democrat Party and the Democrat political interest, the media will stop glazing black people. All of the need for black representation will be lost, which, you know, they'll stop replacing white characters with black people, you know, because a lot of that shit didn't make money anyway, right? All of this like fake inserting black people into shit that black people don't typically belong in, all that shit was like propaganda, because at least from one political perspective, it served a purpose, right? But now we're finding out that there's no more purpose to serve. You're not going to get a lot of bang for your buck by just shoving black people in everybody's face anymore, because politically, they're just not as viable as they used to be. The black vote is not as solidified as it used to be. And so I don't know that the Republicans need the black vote in a way that they'll start playing up to it, you know, ass kissing basically the way the Democrats were doing, right? And that's kind of what I do like about, and I listen, if you go back long enough, you might have heard me say that in a different election at a different time, the Republicans don't actually have to kiss black people ass. If you're the right wing and you want to gain more black votes, if you're Trump and you want to gain more black votes, don't put on Jordans and start talking with a ghetto accent, right? Don't start acting black. Don't start playing up blackness, right? All you have to do is point out how weak and how weird the Democrats are. And you'll get black votes just by default without even having to act black. Let the Democrats pretend to be black, and they'll still lose the black vote, right? Republicans got the family vote, right? Republicans have the vote of like objectively good, positive American values. And a lot of black folk actually will revolve. They will gravitate toward that as the political winds start to shift, right? Because black folk are trendy. You know, black people are trendy people, and everything is starting to trend Republican now. And so black people are going to start to like trend a little bit more Republican. And as the Democrats lose the value and lose the bang for their buck with the black vote, black people are going to be like, all right, well, fuck you too.
Very interesting looking at that past Gallup information.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the race for control in Congress?
Okay, so you see this right here. You see this 51-point advantage that Democrats have, significantly less than you see that 63-point advantage. And what we will note was back in 2024, right, Donald Trump put in a historically strong performance among African Americans. Democrats performed the worst in a generation. Have they gained any of that coalition back from where they fell down to in 2024? But take a look here. Okay, choice for election among African Americans. Kamala Harris was leading amongst that group in the pre-election polling by 63 points. Are Democrats gaining back any of that ground? It's a 62-point advantage now. Republicans are holding on to the gains that they made among African Americans in 2024. Republicans are gaining among African Americans. They are chipping away at that long-term advantage. The Donald Trump-led Republican Party is making gains among African Americans that we simply put have not seen the Republican Party make in a generation.
That's it.
Right Illusion says this may actually be a major hit to rap. Rap was already falling off. Rap is already a dying breed. You know, years ago, Nas said hip hop is dead, and nobody believed him. But you know, sometimes it takes a while for a thing to die. You know, I know hunters have this problem. Sometimes you shoot a deer and it just wanders off into the forest, and it takes a couple of miles to track him before he dies. That's basically hip hop right now. Hip hop is a wounded deer wandering through the forest, looking for a place to collapse and die out and bleed out.
Good to see you here. Thanks so much for putting it together.
6 justices all but threw away the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Now, they left the words on the paper, but they erased the meaning. The way poll taxes and literacy tests and jelly bean counting tried to negate the 15th Amendment that gave Black people the right to vote. Why? Because voting is the single most important power in a democracy. Not just the act of going to the polls and filling in some bubbles. No, it's the ability to vote for your candidate of choice. Now, you are not entitled to vote for the winner, but gerrymandering districts can mean that your power is so watered down that you never even had a chance to choose who represents you or pretends to. Enter Louisiana. The court struck down its map today, saying that lawmakers illegally used race to draw a majority Black district. At the heart of the ruling was Section 2 of the Civil Rights Act that LBJ signed. And before I explain Section 2, why don't you listen to what LBJ said when he signed it into law?
Not LBJ.
Millions of Americans are denied the right to vote because of their color.
Did we just break the LBJ 200-year curse ahead of schedule? Because, you know, LBJ was famously quoted as, you know, saying, we'll have these niggas voting Democrat for 200 years. Did we break the LBJ curse, y'all?
This law will ensure them the right to vote. The wrong is one which no American in his heart can justify.
Ensure them the right to vote. Section 2, it tried to prevent racial gerrymandering precisely because it diluted voting power. And that's now all but out the window. And already today, we saw Republican candidates across Alabama and Georgia and Mississippi and Tennessee and South Carolina and others all push for the maps to be redrawn to benefit their party.
When did it come out? Just now?
No, it came out this morning, but basically very much narrows the Voting Rights Act.
Was it considered a win for who?
A win for Republicans.
I love it.
Do you? Because I worked in the voting rights section of the Civil Rights Division. So I can tell you how instrumental Section 2 was to getting gerrymandered districts redrawn to be fair. or prevent the maps from even getting drawn in the first place. It was critical to ensuring that voting rights meant anything to minority voters. Now, it wasn't a cakewalk, but before today, you had a fighting chance to ensure that the blood, the sweat, the tears, and the indignities and the violence towards those who have the audacity to believe in equality didn't fight and legislate in vain.
You know, going forward, Black America really is going to have to find something else to ground its identity around beyond just, you know, everybody's always picking on me. That shit's going out of style now. You're losing your mojo.
It understood that racism, it could be right in your face, but it could also be strategic and covert. So you could prove that a district was unconstitutionally gerrymandered, even if you couldn't show some smoking gun that said, you know why I'm drawing this crazy salamander or goofy shaped district? To make sure that Black and brown voters can't gain strength in numbers. Who's writing that?
But the other side of that is that white voters should automatically gain strength in numbers too, right? This is why it's a dangerous game to play if you really want to run the logic out.
Now, if you could show that the map had that effect, without those words, the map could be redrawn. But now the Supreme Court says, yeah, you have to bring that smoking gun. It's not enough to show that Black voters were targeted or...
You have to prove actual racism, which is often hard and difficult to prove because you niggas be lying. Now you have to prove racism.
That Black voters feel the brunt of an illegal practice. No, now you got to eliminate the possibility, no matter how remote and in the category of pigs flying, that these Black voters were targeted because they were Black Democrats. You likely have to prove that race, not political party, explains the harmful effect. Welcome to the wink and the nod portion of what MLK and so many others fighting for civil rights had to contend with. It's also an extremely high bar that will likely be insurmountable in most cases to prove that. And the why. Why the majority did this is something you ought to pay close attention to. Because they said that there had been vast social change, that's the phrase, particularly in the South, that have made these considerations unnecessary. Are we back on the flawed theory that we live in a post-racial world?
If it's not post-racial, then why does it have to only be, you know, pro-Black? You know, that's such a weird position. So if we don't live in a post-racial world, does everybody get racial ethnic representation? If so, then, you know, white folks should have automatically won, right? Because they got the biggest block. But then also we get back to another deeper problem. What are the values of the Black bloc? Maybe this is why the Black districts are always struggling, because your own representation doesn't believe in the type of things that will help you guys thrive.
Wow. Tell that to my mother, who was 13 years old when the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed. Or tell it to my 13-year-old son, who just saw it become what Justice Elena Kagan called a dead letter. My first guest is a longtime champion of the Civil Rights Act and has not left the fight. Former Attorney General under President Obama, Eric Holder, joins me now. And I should note, I served as a career prosecutor during his tenure in the Civil Rights Division. Attorney General, thank you so much for being here. As you can imagine, this feels deeply personal to so many people and legally and analytically completely unhinged, frankly, to me. But I have to ask you what your takeaway is, because there are those who will look at this and say, see, gerrymandering is bad, even if it's meant to undo entrenched racial discrimination. What's your thought?
Well, I got to tell you, I take this both personally and professionally. I was 13 years old when the 65 Voting Rights Act was passed. I was the attorney general who had to deal with that first attack on the Voting Rights Act, the Shelby County case that has, unfortunately, my name attached to it. And I've seen the dismemberment of the Voting Rights Act by the Roberts Court. And you have to ask yourself, why? John Roberts, when he was a young lawyer at the Justice Department, apparently was against the Voting Rights Act. And now that he is the Chief Justice of the United States, he has finally reached that dream of his to really come up with a way in which you get rid of the most important parts of the Voting Rights Act. So I feel as personally as well as professionally. And it's something that I think we have to fight. And we have to do all that we can to try to manage this crisis that we are presently in, but then come up with long-term solutions so that we put this country back on the right path.
Are you persuaded by Justice Alito's statements that the country is seeing vast social change, particularly in the South, as a reason, and what he wrote was, Black voters now participate in elections at similar rates as the rest of the country? Is that persuasive enough to gut Section 2?
No. I mean, the reason that Black people participate at essentially the same rate, to the extent that that's true, is because of the protections that you saw in the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Before that act was passed, you did not see significant Black voter participation. It was difficult to register. It was difficult to vote. 65 Voting Rights Act goes into effect. You see a stark number of people
in 2020, whatever, you can like register to vote without ever looking a white person in the eye. That's kind of why things really are different today than it was. Not only technology, but just like the practical living situation in America. I mean, you go downtown to your local voting office, you're probably going to get handed paperwork by some Latino woman. If you wait to speak to an actual representative, it'll be like an Indian guy. Like, you never have to talk to a white person in a lot of these cases now.
Number of people who register, who vote, who ultimately get elected. So, you know, and this notion that somehow or another, just because the nation has changed, and it has changed, we have to acknowledge that, because if we don't, we do a grave disservice to those who sacrificed to give me opportunities that they did not have. But the nation is not yet at the place where it should be.
I don't know what you mean by where it should be. And I think, you know, I'm probably going to wrap on this point right here. Now that Black folk are losing their voting rights, I got to ask a question, you know. Has Black America wasted its voting rights? You know, no, it's a fair question. You know, I do the same thing with women. You know, look what women have done with their vote. What have women voted for? Abortion and welfare. What have Black people voted for? Abortion and welfare. I'm just saying, if these are your values, maybe more serious people ought not respect your values. If your values have brought you to this point, of what value are your values? You know, I think it's a thought worth considering. I really do. I think it's something to think about. If your values have gotten you to this point, what are your values really worth? But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up right here. Shout out to the Supreme Court. Shout out to you niggas losing your voting rights. You earned it.
I'm telling you, man, this the reason why I be hating niggas, man. I'm telling you, man. It just be us. I be hating niggas, man.
This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle.
It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.